Welcome to the last part of World War One, Peace Without Victory. So World War One has ended, and now we're going to look at the outcomes, the peace treaties that were signed for World War One. As World War One drew to a close, the scale of destruction and massive loss of life was shocking. President Wilson wanted a just and lasting peace to ensure that this type of war never happened again. So, Wilson outlined his vision of world peace in a speech that he made to Congress of January 1918 before the war ended. This plan was called the 14 Points. So, he's making a speech to Congress almost 11 months before the war is even over with about how he wants to see things to progress after the war is completely over with, so nothing like this ever happens again. Some of the points, these are the main points of the 14 points that Wilson made. Open diplomacy, so openness between countries and discussion between countries instead of these closed doors where everybody's out for their best interest. Freedom of seas, removing some of these trade barriers that make it difficult to trade back and forth. Definitely a reduction of military arms so that nobody gets the idea that this is something that's okay. Also, self-determination, the right of people to decide their own political status. With self-determination, Wilson's idea behind this was he wanted the people of Austria-Hungary to be able to form their own nations. So create their own nations out of that region of Europe. So that's what he wanted for them, because he figured if somebody else divided up that land, it was only inevitable that we would have another crisis or another war that would start because of the outcome of this war if everything was too harsh on Germany and Austria-Hungary. He believed that the League of Nations, which was his 14th point that he made, and was most important for everybody to join to protect democracy and to work together. It was a group of nations working together is the idea behind the League of Nations. They would settle disputes, protect democracy, and even prevent future wars. So he has the right idea behind the League of Nations, and we'll see how that works out for everybody in the end. So, Wilson wrote his 14 points in January of 1918. Fast forward to January 1919. We are now at the Paris Peace Conference. There are 4 big countries who attended the conference. Overall, there were 32 nations representing 3/4 of the world's population at this conference. But the 4 countries that are really going to make the decisions of the outcome of World War I are going to be these 4 right here. David Lloyd George is from Great Britain, George Clemenceau from France, Vittorio Orlando from Italy, and then President Woodrow Wilson from the United States. Names are not important, but you do need to know the 4 countries that were at the Paris Peace Conference making the decision. So you do need to know Great Britain, France, Italy, and the United States. So you need to make sure that you, continuing on with the Paris Peace Conference, there's going to be a lot of competing needs and desires of countries who are there. The United States, obviously, we just got done talking about this, wanted a better world, open trade. They wanted to reduce weapons. France, Great Britain, and Italy, they wanted to punish Germany for World War I. They were angry at the outcome of the war and where the war was fought and how many lives were lost and how much money was spent on the war itself. So they're out to punish Germany for what happened in World War I. Also, some of the other countries that were at the conference, they wanted independence. They wanted to build new nations. And a couple of the new nations that came out of this were Yugoslavia and Czechoslovakia. Some countries wanted to reestablish their nation, such as Poland, because they were divided between Germany and Russia. So they were looking to bring their country back together as one. So as you can see, there's a lot of competing ideas of what the outcome of this conference should be. With all these different countries, those 4 big ones are actually going to make the decisions for what is going to happen in Europe after World War I. Okay. For the treaty that was actually signed at the end of World War I, everybody should know that that is the Treaty of Versailles. There are 6 provisions that I want you to know that Germany had to agree to. They were forced to sign. So these are the 6 that you need to know. Make sure you have this highlighted, circled, underlined. We will go back over this again in class. Disarm their military. So they had to give up all their military arms. They had to pay reparations. So we all should know that reparations means payment for damages or expenses caused by the war. They were to accept responsibility or accept blame for the war. They had to give up their colonial lands. They also had to give up German lands. And last but not least, they had to join the League of Nations. So those are the 6 provisions Germany had to agree to after World War I because of the ideas and the compromises that were made between the big 4 countries at the Paris Peace Conference. The final treaty was actually much harsher than what Wilson wanted. Great Britain and France wanted to punish Germany for World War I. So they wanted to punish Germany. The Treaty of Versailles was to punish Germany. It created 9 new nations in Europe. Germany strongly protested the treaty, and they were actually threatened by the French military action if they didn't sign it. Wilson was disappointed with the treaty, but believed the League of Nations could resolve any problems that the treaty created. So President Wilson had a lot of faith in the League of Nations. He may have been one of the only people with that faith. So we will see what happens with the League of Nations and the outcome of the Treaty of Versailles tomorrow evening. Homework time. Go back to classjump.com. Which plan, either the 14 points or the Treaty of Versailles, was most justified, and explain your answer.